Dawn in Buckinghamshire, a farmhouse stands silent. Inside, a radio still humming, a calendar frozen on a date, and Monopoly, abandoned mid-move. Within hours, detectives would uncover the trail that doomed Britain's greatest heist. The robbery was no longer just a crime. It was about to become a manhunt, a betrayal, and a legend. Leatherslade Farm was meant to be invisible, the perfect hideout, but greed and carelessness cracked it wide open. When police raided, they found cups half-washed, newspapers blocking windows, and fingerprints scattered everywhere. Even the Monopoly board, left mid-game, screamed haste. Brian Field, the fixer who arranged the farm, became a weak link. Some say he deliberately tipped off the police when the pressure rose. Others say it was careless chatter from neighbors and associates. Either way, the fortress that was supposed to protect the gang betrayed them. Scotland Yard's flying squad didn't rely on genius. They relied on patience. Officers combed every corner of the farmhouse, dusting prints, bagging wrappers, matching receipts from local shops. Neighbors remembered a van driving back and forth at odd hours. Shopkeepers recalled strangers buying groceries in bulk. Even the paint used to board up windows was traced to the single hardware store. Police created massive evidence boards, linking mugshots with receipts, cars, and locations. It wasn't one smoking gun. It was 1,000 tiny sparks building into a fire. And then came the whispers, informants eager to trade names for leniency, associates of the gang who couldn't stand the pressure. Britain's biggest heist was unraveling because people simply couldn't keep secrets. Arrests started fast. Roger Corddry, the quiet man of the crew, was caught after police traced him to a garage where he had paid for paint with stolen notes. Jimmy White was tracked through sloppy safehouse moves. Charlie Wilson, dubbed the Silent Man, was caught in a suburban flat after informants betrayed his location. One by one, they fell, but not all. Bruce Reynolds, the brains of the heist, stayed ahead longest. Charismatic, cautious, he had a gift for disappearing. For years, he drifted between safe houses, then escaped to Mexico with his family, living under assumed names. He dressed differently in every country. He forged passports. He had contacts in Europe who provided new identities. For nearly 5 years, he lived a shadow life, part fugitive, part family man. But cash ran thin, and the web of trust grew brittle. In 1968, police finally caught him in Torquay, England. What gave him away wasn't daring police work. It was the simple fact that a fugitive can never fully erase their past. Old contacts, tired mistakes, and quiet whispers pulled Reynolds back into the light. Ronnie Biggs was different. He escaped prison in 1965 and fled abroad. He made it to Australia, then Brazil, where he lived for decades. He gave interviews, drank in public bars, and even leaned into his myth. But exile wasn't paradise. He lived constantly on guard, unable to return home, aging into a frail figure defined by the robbery he once helped pull off. Of the £2.6 million stolen, only a small portion was ever recovered. Millions simply vanished. Some was burned to avoid trace, some hidden in stashes that were never found, some spent in exile. To this day, mystery lingers. Did hidden accounts make someone rich, or was it all wasted in flight and fear? When justice struck, it was merciless. At the Old Bailey in 1964, the core gang faced thunderous sentences. Bruce Reynolds, 25 years. Charlie Wilson, 30 years. Ronnie Biggs, 30 years. Orden Goody, Buster Edwards, Roy James, and others, 25 to 30 years each. The message was clear. Britain wouldn't just punish them. It would make them an example. Courtrooms were packed with reporters, flashbulbs exploding like gunfire. Some saw justice. Others called it vengeance. Either way, decades behind bars became the price for one night of glory. Others faded into stranger stories. Buster Edwards fled to Mexico, later returning voluntarily to face trial. He would eventually run a flower stall in London, living a bittersweet half-life between criminal fame and ordinary obscurity. Roy James, the getaway driver and racing enthusiast, was caught when his flashy lifestyle, Expensive cars, sudden wealth drew attention. Charlie Wilson staged a daring prison escape in 1964, fled to Canada, and lived quietly until he was tracked down by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police in 1968. Each robber's downfall carried the same lesson. In the end, money couldn't buy silence. Friends, families, and strangers talked, and every whisper led to a door. The robbery didn't die in prison cells. It lived on in books, films, and pub tales. To some, the robbers were folk heroes, working-class men who dared to challenge the system. To others, they were violent criminals who ruined lives and shattered trust. Both views became part of the myth. The Great Train Robbery turned into Britain's most famous crime, not because it was perfect, but because it was messy. Betrayals, missing millions, trials, escapes, and myths gave it life long after the sentences were read. The Great Train Robbery wasn't just a heist. It was a saga, betrayal, manhunt, exile, and sentences that made history. 60 years later, we're still following the tracks, not of money, but of a story that refuses to die. If you liked this, please like and subscribe. We uncover history's darkest secrets every week.